Welcome home all. Monday after a heavy weekend, and I hope you guys enjoyed yours, but we had a very, very serious end to the week this past Friday. If you guys were watching on the Friday, I walked in just after learning from earlier in the day that we had another mass shooting, in this particular case in Virginia Beach. And here's the thing, we've been doing this, and it's almost like, and I think I said this on the Friday, that it's almost obligatory that we expect or wait, for the next one to happen, or when it's going to be to happen. And let's be serious and honest about it. I mean, the reality is that this takes place all over the country. It takes place in a variety of forms. There are murders going on every day in this country, and because some draw more attention or get more coverage than others, doesn't diminish those that are not as covered, or those that we do not know as well, because it's not getting enough airtime on a variety of networks, or the networks and the outlets, the news outlets that have the ability to put it out to greater scale, meaning saturation throughout the nation, if not internationally. So it does take place periodically, and I'm just like, what do you do? Individual, Joe America, Jane America, right? What do you do other than wish well, to the families and the loved ones, for those that are left in suffering and bereavement. And we kind of go about our daily lives. We go back to normal and just hope somehow, some way that doesn't affect us, or doesn't get to us in some form or fashion, either personally or directly in the form of somebody doing something to you, or somebody in your extended family or extended network of friends, etc., that hopefully you never get affected by. But I'm going to say it again, the reality is that it happens consistently on a daily basis. I live in Fresno, California. There are homicides, murders that go on, if not daily, then on a consistent basis. There's going to be something every week or two or other. And then if you live in a larger metropolitan area, then it's most likely, if not more likely, that you're probably going to be more immune or more inured, I-N-U-R-E-D, to the fact that these things take place and you see them constantly, and you almost become desensitized to the life and the death of what happens on a daily basis. Again, unless it affects you directly. So I want to be clear here, because we have done shows, I have personally done shows where we discussed and talked openly about gun violence, and before we jump to that, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I'm an old soldier. I believe in the right to bear arms, but I've said that I believe in common sense stuff. I believe that you shouldn't have whack jobs running the street with AKs or ARs and fully automatic weapons. The one thing I'll point out, because we did this on a show, and this was after the Las Vegas shooting. The Las Vegas shooting. It's about a year and a half ago now. But after that one, we did a show, we talked about it, we broached the discussion, because, ladies and gentlemen, quite literally, that is the way that you go if you want to get to issue and ultimately solution. You have to have good discussion, and you have to have meaningful, emotionless discussion. Now, I know that's not always easy. It's far more difficult, actually, to do so without emotion, for any issue of importance. And that's usually where this goes, right? You get angry, you get sad, and then that begins to cloud judgment or reason. I don't. I've been conditioned and trained otherwise, so I quite look at it ambivalently, without any emotion, and try to make good decision based on what's best for the majority, or the whole, the body. So we talked about it at one point on a show that we did, and I think at some point, and some of you guys will love this, because if you've been with me long enough, you know where I'm at. I do believe that the Congress needs to do a better job for us. I think I'm coming back a little bit on some things with regard to Congress in general over time, having lived enough life, I'm not a kid, and seen good and bad. We have to quite literally look for the good, because there's bad that's reported all over the place. If you're on the left, you attack the Republican side. If you're on the right, you attack the Democratic side, and never the twain shall meet. quite literally, never the twain shall meet. That's kind of the case where we are. That was the case during the government shutdown that the president authored and said that I'm going to own this shutdown, but it takes two to tango. And Democrats didn't comply or didn't work with them, and we had a government shutdown. So what's my point? The point is this, is that out of that Las Vegas shooting and a couple others, there was an attempt. And I'll say this, so on record, you got to point out the good. You got to point out the good, and I do think it's a good thing. There was a ban on bump stocks agreed to by the president and the Congress. That's good. That's good. Put me on air, put me on record here for saying that is good, because I think there's absolutely no necessity for bump stocks on a weapon if you're not trying, to actually harm large amounts of people. All right, you don't need a bump stock, shooting a buck, okay, or pheasants, hunting, or other. Okay, you don't need a bump stock for that. So that was good. I do think that was good. And so we're going to have this discussion. We're not doing that today because there's a lot more. We're kind of doing Wrap-In Monday, so we've got a lot of items to discuss. But I'm making a commitment right now. We are going to have a lucid, thoughtful, meaningful conversation on the Second Amendment, what it means, because you got to get square with your Constitution. I think that's one of my biggest issues today, is that people don't know the Constitution or don't read it, don't understand the principles of it. They get bastardized versions of what they think the Constitution is from their news outlets, whether it's left or right or anywhere else. And then you are left to move down that road without a full, unobstructed, and clear view of what the principle is. Okay, so I think we need to do that too. So we need to have a lucid, thoughtful, meaningful conversation on the Second Amendment, what it means, and an application. How does it go forward? So again, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I'm a Bill of Rights guy. I swore an oath to defend this Constitution and obviously the Bill of Rights. I believe in that. It gets me into trouble with some people because I argue for some things in the Bill of Rights. It gets me in trouble with other people because I argue about things in the Bill of Rights that we believe in or we should be advocating for. But I do believe the bump stock ban was good. I do believe we need to have that conversation, and we need to talk about the difference between a regular law-abiding American that has the right and ability to own a weapon, a gun, and the disconnect between that person and the person over here that doesn't need to be owning a weapon, because then they're going to go run off and kill people. All right, and I use this analogy in many ways, and it's applicable. Now I want you to think about this really, really clear and hard. It's going to be a hard-hitting episode today. I'm going to make you think today before we walk out of this program, or at least before you turn off and move on to whatever other conservative talk radio or left-wing liberal radio that you've got and that you listen to. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, okay, but I'm going to use that one as the example, the freedom of speech and the press, etc. But in this case, freedom of speech, I've said it a bunch of times because it's applicable. If you're in a large, confined space, a building with a lot of people, and you yell fire, ladies and gentlemen, that is no longer freedom of speech, because that is dangerous. And the minute your rights impinge on the rights of others, other Americans, is the minute you begin to lose that right. Make sure I'm clear here. Your freedom of speech does not give you the right, as delineated in the Constitution, to impose your freedom on the will of others. All right, that's fundamental. It's legal. That is in our court system, and it has been for quite some time in a variety of cases that are the blueprints for how these cases go forward regarding freedom of speech. Okay, so why did I bring up freedom of speech? Because I'm going to say Second Amendment, right to bear arms, right? Right to bear arms. Your right to bear arms is no longer applicable when it impinges on the rights of others to be safe. See how that works? That's a truism. All right, it's the same exact thing. Your personal rights in this Constitution as an American do not extend beyond you, meaning going out and you get to harm other people. Then by that extension, what ends up happening is you're taking away their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, yes? Okay, I think generally most of you guys get that and understand it. You wonder about, okay, why is he saying that? Oh, he's going to take away my rights. No, by far no. Okay, but I would and absolutely take away your right to harm another. We're standing on the side of the street and you pull out a weapon, I'm taking you down, homie, sorry. All right, you don't get to harm other people. Not on my watch, not where I'm at, and not in my Constitution. So I want you to consider that and think about that, because it's relevant and it's logical. And it's actually fundamental to our Constitution. You have your right, yes. But the minute your rights impinge on the rights of others, meaning more than you, more than one, more than other, then you begin to lose that right to do harm to other people, okay? Because this country is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody that is an American citizen should have that ability, regardless of the other, okay? So I want to be clear about that. So we will have that discussion. We're going to have to do that with some seriousness, probably going to be an hour or two, maybe, I don't know. But it's a serious issue, and I want to bring it back relative to mass shootings. I will say this before I move on. This is the open, right? And it's going to be kind of throughout the show. But here's the thing. More than any other one country, we murder each other. We kill each other on a daily basis at a greater clip than just about every other country on this planet. That's a problem. And yes, that is individual. That's not a gun. Yes, it is true somebody has to pull the trigger. I'm absolutely in agreement with you. You're absolutely right about that. If that's your rationale and your logic. Don't take away my gun because I'm not responsible for some fool who pulled the trigger that shouldn't. You're absolutely right. Okay, but what I'm telling you is to not acknowledge that fact is you just waiting for your turn to get shot or someone you know to get shot. Okay, so we need to have that discussion. It needs to be fair and open-minded. So I'm going to start it by saying I am a Second Amendment guy. Okay, but I'm a common sense guy. And the minute my Second Amendment right impinges on or endangers another, then I need to think twice about what I'm doing in terms of my right. Okay, so we're going to have that discussion. We're going to have lucid, thoughtful, meaningful conversation on the Second Amendment and how we go forward with it. Again, some simple bump stocks. Come on, you don't need a bump stock to go hunt. There are other things like that. Okay, somebody brought up, you've heard a lot of different, types of legislation because it's a presidential cycle, right? Everybody's got an idea. But I've heard some crazy, some too far, and I've heard some that are a little, closer to center, and you guys know where I'm at. I'm fairly moderate on, take that back, I'm moderating in terms of trying to get people to agree on something. You guys know the rule, that's what I do. I have my hard views one way or the other. I'm hard left on some and I'm hard right on others. But when it comes to getting this, this country, this America of ours to start working together, then I am a moderating force. I believe in bringing something to common ground. Otherwise, we just disagree and argue, and we never actually get together on anything. In which case, we have no country, because that would not be where we are today. So let's do that. That'll be coming up, I want to say, let's do that within a week or two. I've got to pencil out. I've got a lot planned over the next few weeks through this month, including busy schedule. As my daughter finishes up high school, we're almost done. She's got about a little over a week left before she graduates, and she moves off into the world to do her thing. So we will have that discussion on Second Amendment. You have my word on that. We'll do it in a clean fashion. We'll do it in the right fashion, all right? Without any emotion one way or the other, without a Democrat or Republican lean one way or the other, without a conservative or liberal lean one way or the other. It's a constitutional lean. And that's the only way, not the other. Okay, so what we have up behind me right now is the 12 people that were murdered in Virginia Beach this Friday. It's easy to pull up. You guys can check them out, but I want the faces. I want you to see the faces. These are moms, dads, brothers, sisters, husbands, and wives, and they're gone because somebody chose to take their right to an extreme, because that's quite literally what it is. I don't know all the particulars. I really don't get into it. And I think you guys know that I do not read the name of the perpetrator. I do not acknowledge that. I do like that. That was done a while ago, and I dig on it. I mean, I'm not going to give any attention to somebody that did something so wrong. I mean, it's like, bury it, get out of here, but let's solve the problem. So we're going to leave those people up throughout this show tonight in reminder and remembrance for those that lost their lives this past Friday. And to, a not so subtle, if not in your face, on camera reminder that this takes place every single day. All right, so one last thing before we move on to other items and issues from the weekend that are not specifically the Virginia Beach shooting. When we did this, we, went through the weekend, and I was reminded that in this country, we murder and kill each other at a greater clip on a daily basis than just about every other country on the planet. And so when we did the Friday show, and I had Swainbo here, we've been doing our dream high school, our utopian high school scenario now for a number of weeks, if not a month or two. And, obviously you guys figured out it's real easy with that guy. He is a friend. He is of like mind on a variety of issues. We don't agree on every single thing, but we generally respect each other enough to know that if there's something we don't agree on, we don't try to change or force the other person to be other. We don't do that to each other. And that's quite literally the way I treat you. Right? I've never told you to vote a specific way. I've never told you to do or not do something other than go out on a Friday and have a good, go live a life, right? There are some things. Nothing bad, softball stuff. But when we had this discussion on Friday with Tim Swain, we ended up discussing safety and security in schools because, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this was a government building in a government setting, a city setting, but a lot of these mass shootings frequently take place in school settings, on campus for different schools, elementary, middle school, high school, and colleges. Okay, so we talked, and if you have the chance, go back and watch Friday because there was some great content there. When I went back and viewed, Tim and I laid out some specifics as to, and I'm talking about specifics, as to what should or should not be in the case of a school in dealing with violence or mass shootings, etc., on a campus. We talk specifics about a number, how many people we should have, how many law enforcement personnel. It was good. I mean, I was really pleased when we were done, and I watched it back over the weekend, and I'm like, okay, you've got, again, fact-based, issue-oriented, solution-driven discussion. We actually gave answer to some things that are tangible and understandable that you can do in your community or in a school site that could actually make your community safer. And then you and I aren't talking about how your school was attacked and kids' lives were lost. We're talking about preventing in advance. We're talking about being progressive, not reactionary, and going backward and not doing anything. We're talking about moving forward, progressing the issue of gun violence and attacks on school campuses. That was all Friday. But here's the point. What came out of that was this. We need to do something about the mental aspect of the rationale behind mass shootings and Americans killing each other and murdering each other on a daily basis. That is to the crux of the problem. It's not just that they have a weapon. Now, some of my friends on the left will probably not be happy with me saying that, but the reality is it takes somebody to pull the trigger. All right, that's a cold hard fact, whether you like it or not, whether you want to get rid of all weapons in the world or not. That's not going to solve the damn problem. They're just going to create other weapons. So I'm going to be clear now. Those things take place. They are the extension or the result of someone or somebody acting in a not good fashion and using technology, in this case a weapon, to harm others. We need to fundamentally address that issue. Okay? Yes, bump stock bans, not having kids run around the street with AKs in their hands, absolutely. That's tangible, that's doable right now. We can do that. Congress and the president should act on that now. They can sit down and get some of this done now. Lo and behold, let's see if it happens. That'd be nice. Okay, so short of that, I'm going to get to the crux of the problem. How so, why so? Yes, you're supposed to be raised in a good house. You're supposed to have parents that teach you things. You're supposed to have values and principles, heaven forbid, a respect for life. That's what we're supposed to be raised for. Here's where the rubber meets the road. What happens if that doesn't happen in a particular house? Then what are we going to say? Oh, that kid was screwed up because his parents were bad. That still doesn't solve the problem of that kid, that person, going wacko and pulling a weapon and blowing people away. Doesn't solve the problem. So watch this, because if you watched Friday, you'll know exactly where I'm going with this. How do we solve that problem? I'm not going to say 100% certainty that we're going to solve them all, but this is a damn good start, if not a good place to go. Tim and I talked about social emotional needs, talked about having, this is in education, more nurses, more counselors, more behavioral therapists, more psychologists, more in the education system in addition to the teachers. In addition to teachers that are usually the front line for a young person in a school system and their home life. I can tell you directly, There were teachers that affected my life and kept me off the ugly path. I've named two of them on air, Dennis Fitzpatrick and Robert Arbayo. In many ways, they saved my life. In many ways. They got me invested and interested in things. One of them fostered my love of history and love of this country, Dennis Fitzpatrick. The other, Robert Arbayo, got me interested, literally got me into the room, and got me involved in sport and activity, wrestling. Those two men affected and changed my life. I'm not saying I would have been something else, but I could have been. Not good, but they changed my life. Teachers, education. That is the one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that can fundamentally alter negative behavior that comes from someone that is missing something or somebody. Maybe he doesn't have a mom or a dad. Maybe he doesn't have a good home. Maybe he gets beaten down all the damn time. Maybe he's picked on. Maybe he's waiting to act out. Education. Tim Swain and I talked about that on Friday. We can address and preclude, solve these problems in advance. How much? I don't know. I can't tell you. But what I do know is if we do something about it, it'll stop something going forward instead of doing nothing and stopping nothing going forward. Here's a thought experiment on the spot. What if we did more of that? What if we had one more counselor that could talk to that young guy, that young dude, before he gets out of high school and he goes to a college and then he blows 20 people away because he felt unloved, unneeded, not a part of society, beaten down, picked on? Maybe if he had that counselor, maybe if he had that therapist, psychologist in high school that he talked to, a counselor, and maybe he was diverted a different way and maybe saved 20 people later on that young man would have killed. Thought experiment. It is plausible, if not probable, ladies and gentlemen. Now, could you imagine if we put our time, our energy, our effort, our money, our ability as a country, the nation and the world's greatest country, put our thought and energy into education in that form, and we have less, maybe one, maybe two, maybe a dozen less mass shootings, maybe a dozen less people sitting behind me right now, maybe a dozen less not dead. Is that not worth it? Is that not of value? That is a rhetorical question. I think the answer is obvious. It is of value. It is important. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a rationale and a motivation to actually begin putting our money where our mouth is and getting knee-deep into our schooling system and how we educate and raise our young people. See how that works? It ultimately is about education because we cannot guarantee that they're getting it in the home. That's a fact. Whether you want to admit it or not, and you can say your family was great, your parents were great, they did good things for you, you grew up okay. That's not everybody. Now maybe in my backyard everything's good, and I've said that on there. But I don't just relegate what I do to my backyard. I go out into my community, I go out into my country, into this world, and actively participate to try to make it better for someone other than myself and other than those in my immediate surrounding. In essence, what I'm doing right now is not just in my backyard, not just for me, not just for my own, but it is for this country. I want you to think about that because that's going to come up a little bit more. I think it's absolutely necessary, but that's my fact-based, issue-oriented, solution-driven response to this continuance of mass shootings. And again, not just mass shootings at a particular place, in this one in Virginia Beach, but murders and killings, homicides that take place on a daily basis in the greatest country the world has ever seen, with the greatest preponderance of killing its own, maybe, that the world has ever seen. We do each other in on a mass scale on a daily basis. We need to start addressing the issue. And I can't wait for leadership, what passes for it, to actually address it. That's why we talk here. That's why we raise issue, we're staying fact-based, and we move to solution. Issue-oriented, fact-based, solution-driven. Okay, we're going to leave these people up. You can Google them, pull them up. I actually did because one of the news stations did cover them. They gave I want to say like a one-paragraph synopsis of this person, who they were, their lives, their loved ones, some good anecdotal information about, where they were from, who they were, etc. One of them just had a birthday. Another was going to retire this year. Another was a mother of multiple children. So they're human beings, they're Americans. They matter. They matter to me. So please, again, thanks KP for getting that up. We're going to leave those up for the remainder of this episode, this show tonight. And we're going to move on. But those, I want you to really pay attention to those words. And if you get a chance, go back and listen to what Swain and I did on the Friday. It's on YouTube or on the Facebook page. You can scroll it back. We were actually literally riffing on the spot about possible solutions to how we address this. And since he's a cool guy, real easygoing, he didn't sweat it one way. He understands that things happen. And in my neck of the world, the United States Army, we adapt and overcome. We make changes and we move forward. So it was a very good discussion Friday night on how to address and how there are things that we can do as a country to make this situation better than what it is in terms of mass shooting and Americans killing, murdering Americans. Okay, let's move on. So I've got a few items, like I said, off the weekend. Other than the Virginia Beach shooting, which you can imagine there was plenty of discussion, if not a lot of discussion, and a lot of coverage on that. I'm going to have some tongue-in-cheek fun with you. Here's a news item that went by like with nary a comment and just very little fanfare and very little attention this past week. And I didn't get to it on, I think, Wednesday, Friday, because we had items to do. Wednesdays being kind of abbreviated lately because we're getting businesses in to come and support the show, support our education format. And I have people coming in and we do items on business that are going to sponsor, advertise, support us, and support our mission. And then Friday, it's like we want to go off and I try to have a good time on the Friday, try to enjoy, but I'm not going to lie, I was literally walking out of the home and watching the coverage of the Virginia Beach thing. And it kind of, derailed me a little bit, threw me for a loop, and I'm like, you go, just have a discussion with Swain on some of these items, and it worked out real nice. But this thing kind of flew under the radar, and I can see why. On the left or the right, there was no coverage of it, which I think is telling about who we are, what we are right now. But I've been trying to keep your eyes focused and your mind not just on the shiny new object that you get tossed in front of you every single day. I'm trying to keep you focused on some very consistent and some very disturbing items that you may not like, you may not want to hear about, but that are facts. And no, I'm not talking about the Mueller investigation. Not that this time. Okay, so Vladimir Putin went on air last week and stated that he would supply soybeans and poultry meats to China during our trade war. And if you don't know, now you know. If you don't know, now you know. That soybeans and soybean products out of the Midwest are farming, ag heartland in the center of the country. Soybeans are a massive crop, particularly in Iowa and some of the other Midwestern states. And that is a massive export, not just for, for our country, it's a domestic good. But when you sell outside of the country, it becomes an export. And you export those out to other parts of the world. Other countries buy our products. Country makes money. Live a better life in this country, right? So soybean products and poultry, chicken, turkey, etc., poultry, Vladimir Putin has stated that he would supply and meet the need of China, which is, 2 billion people. They need product, all right? They would buy from us. Now they're not because of the ongoing trade war. I don't have an axe to grind one way or the other. I've said specifically that I do believe that we need to get square with China because they've been eating our lunch now for a long time, and we need to stand up to them and not allow them to continue to take advantage of us. But here's the problem, and more of an education for you, if not a problem. It's an education for you. When Putin got on stage, as I saw the clip of it, when he got on stage and he stipulated and stated on air that he would help China, that Russia would provide them with soybean products, soybeans, and other material, other ag and farming necessities on the part of the Chinese nation, because they have a large population and they need to eat, they need food, and they import a lot from other countries. It wasn't that he did it. It was that as he was saying it, the epiphany came through. It was an epiphanious moment, okay? I sat there and I said to myself, if that wasn't coordinated, I don't know what was. My point being is that this isn't some trade war that just happened. It's been kind of coming, I would say, for a long time. It was necessity. If not Trump, then some president down the road would have to do it anyway, because we can't sit here forever while China continues to gobble up global market while our share decreases of the global market. Some of you guys are not aware of that, but that is a fact. In terms of trade and the global marketplace, in terms of the global economy, the United States is a massive, if not the single most important force that affects the global market. China has systematically, over the last 2 decades, increased its market share of the global economy from the ones, 0 to 10, into the teens, and maybe now up to 20. All right, now let's be clear now. This isn't zero sum, right? Zero sum. They gain, and they definitely gain at our expense. We have decreased while they have increased. So when I saw Vladimir Putin stand up and said that he would provide China with foodstuffs during this trade war, it wasn't some, I'm so kind-hearted and good-hearted. Vladimir Putin. Yeah, right. It wasn't some kind-hearted gesture. It was specifically calculated, and I'm going to say calculated in advance motion on his part to continue to erode and harm the United States in terms of our influence and our economy. That's a fact. You could disagree with it or argue with it, but there's plenty of material out now, including one that 2 books that I've got to read. I'm beginning to read more current stuff. I've had for a long time just read old stuff, meaning, not in the 19th or 20th, or excuse me, 20th and 21st century. But I've begun to read way more now that is current, because I feel I have my base that is historical readings. So, it was calculated. It was good if you're them, and at least from the strategic standpoint, at least from the respect standpoint of calculation and tactics, it was smart and a good move. Because now what we have is the 2 most powerful countries other than ourselves, the United States, the 2 most powerful countries on the planet. If you don't know they've been collaborating, you don't need much more evidence, because it's becoming more and more open and consistent. They don't care anymore that they see that they are collaborating, and definitely not for us. Okay, we're in a trade war. Why would Putin help China? It's not just to make money. That's simple. It is to make money. But it's also zero sum, not to help the United States. It's designed to harm the United States and our markets and our economy. So I'm not giving you one way to go, one way or the other. You're gonna kind of like this. You're like, where should I stand if I'm left or right? If I'm conservative, should I be for that or against it? You don't know. If you're a liberal and if you're left, should you be for that or against it? You don't know. Now you know. No, you don't. It's too nuanced. It's too complicated. What I'm telling you is this. We should be concerned and we should be worried, because I've been stating to you for a long period of time now, and I'm not going to stop, because while we argue and bicker and complain about the politics that go on day to day, the big picture items are being lost, quite literally the forest for the trees. We're getting our lunch handed to us. We're getting eaten alive all over this planet. And those 2 powers, those 2 great powers, those 2 superpowers are not just collaborating quietly anymore. They're collaborating quite literally in the open. They don't care if we know or find out. My concern, if there is one, run it left, run it right, doesn't matter. I'm going to run right down the middle. I'm going to beat you to the finish line. My concern is that we better make sure we have our alliances solid, square, and locked up. Because those 2 will not be with us if the rubber hits the road. Okay, where that rubber meets the road, those 2 will not be with us. China has the largest standing army on the planet. Oh, it's just manpower. Manpower matters. Let me help you out. I'm an old infantry grunt. Manpower matters. Russia has the second largest nuclear capability on the planet to us. China, right about the third. You take 2 and 3, that's not good for 1. See how I do that? Simple math. Second largest nuclear capability, third largest nuclear capability, weaponry, military systems. Second and third. We're number 1. 2 and 3 together, not good for 1. We ought to make that a cup. Make that a slogan. Make sure you're clear on that, though. Make it as simple as possible. That's my concern. That has nothing to do with a president, now or past. That has to do with us knowing in advance that we better start making sure that our leadership is aware of it and does something about it. Fall in line like sheep if you'd like. I choose not to. I bring up the issues that are pertinent and that are far-reaching down the road in time. These things are taking place in real time right now while we watch, and they will affect us later. If not later, then in the shorter term, because they're affecting us now. We have people in the Midwest dealing with this trade war. You won't get that in the subtext of that article on Putin offering soybeans and poultry and ag and farm supplies to China, but read the article if you get a chance. Go look it up. Putin offering soybeans and poultry to China during our trade war with China. Think about it. Moving on. Another larger item. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who's been there for a decade and a half, almost 2 decades, that we know real well. We actually even know the name. Most Americans know the name Netanyahu. He's Israeli Prime Minister. Why am I bringing him up? Okay, because as Crow and I have pointed out in a couple items that we did, one on the Saudi Arabian situation in terms of our foreign policy, it has become abundantly clear to me as these things go on a macro scale, these machinations on a macro scale are taking place, and you begin to see, if not clearly because somebody stands up and said, I did it, no, it wasn't me, I did it, okay, you begin to see and you connect the dots and now you see, and this isn't conspiracy stuff because it's all factual, okay, and you just have to put, I guess here's the problem, the average American doesn't have time to sit there and deduce and put together the facts in terms of connecting the dots that lead us to conclusion. Unfortunately, I'm doing that now. I was like, that sounds ugly. Unfortunately, I'm doing that now. If not anything, for the thought experiment aspect of it, but definitely for the fact that it's bad when more Americans are less engaged or less knowledgeable about the things taking place in this country and out of it. Because that's when things can be done to you or things will happen to you. And then you're quite literally left helpless wondering what the hell just happened. I don't know about you, but I don't like being helpless. I don't like knowing after the fact. I like knowing in advance because if there's opportunity, then there's opportunity to prevent negative from happening and negative from taking place. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he was in a very, very tight all good. He was in a very, very tight re-election campaign with, I can't remember the guy's first name, but it was Gantz, G-A-N-T-Z. There's a great animated flick, Gantz 2.0, I think it is. If you get a chance, go watch it. Like sidebar, right? For those of you guys in my younger set and the older, it's pretty cool. It's a great look at East Asian anime. Gantz 2.0. So anyway, I think it's Benny or something like that. Benny Gantz. He was the guy who ran against Benjamin Netanyahu, the gentleman who ran against Netanyahu, and he lost in a very, very tight race, probably one of the most contested races in Israel's recent history. So why am I bringing that up? Because we've been tight with, and the president now is tight with Benjamin Netanyahu. We have more evidence that the weapons of mass destruction rationale that led us into, illogically, the Iraq war, and in essence, the rationale for us still being there in Iraq and the Middle East. And I'm not talking about 9/11, because if that were the case, we'd be in Saudi Arabia right now beating the hell out of them. Because 14, 15 of the attackers on 9/11 were Saudi Arabian nationals. But never mind that, right? Let's go attack somebody else. So it was Benjamin Netanyahu's government and others in it that fed us, supposedly, the information. We can have Crow talk about that. He likes talking about this particular item. But talking about weapons of mass destruction, incredible evidence showing that they had the ability to harm us with nuclear capability. I think at this point, the younger generation all knows that, even if the older one doesn't, ours, that it was all made up. It was not true. I never believed it personally. And I was really, really disappointed that we went to war for some bogus excuse for fear. Kind of getting some of that now. Scare the hell out of people, they'll go along for the ride. And that includes Congress members. Members of our Congress that went along because they didn't want to be on the bad side of not doing it. Now they look like fools, some of them, for being all for that war, and they were wrong. Fortunately, and I won't call them all fools, because some have stood up and said we were misled, we were given information that was faulty, and I voted that way because I thought this was the case. They've gone back and apologized for it. I'll accept that, because the truth is, everybody gets bad information, including me, including us. We'll get to that in a second. Benjamin Netanyahu won his re-election about a month ago. The way their thing works, and I'm not going to be an expert on the Knesset, their body, their governing body, like our Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate, and in Britain it's the Parliament. Theirs is the Knesset with the K, the Knesset. And you have the ability, basically you get elected Prime Minister, and then it's your job as Prime Minister to form the government, meaning put things in place, get people of opposing parties to get on board with you, and then fill spots and put the government together. It's different. I'm not going to be an expert on it, trust me. But for the sake of argument and for the sake of brevity, he has to form the government. Normally that takes place, it happens, and they move on, he's the Prime Minister. But in rare occasions, and this one in particular, because the election was so close and so contested, and because Benjamin Netanyahu is under threat of, if not indictment, because they can't do anything about him, sound familiar? He's the Prime Minister, but he is under threat of being charged with all kinds of crimes of corruption. All right, so that's going on right now. So in essence, politically, he was not able to form the government. He was not able to put the government together for the Israeli body of government. So if he can't do that, it kicks the can down the road, and it triggered all these other responses. Again, if you really want to get into the weeds on it, go ahead. It's kind of fun. I'm not going to get into all of that here. It'd be an hour or two or more. But he was not able to form government. And so because he was not able to form government, they are now going to go back to a do-over. You like that, huh? Check that out. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that. They're going to go to a do-over. It's funny and interesting to go and look at other forms of democracies all over the world. Ours is singularly unique because we were the ones that put it together early and hard at the beginning, and a lot of others have copied our form and blueprinted our form of government. But they're not all exactly the same. Some are, markedly different. They're still democracies, ladies and gentlemen. Some are actually truer democracies than we are. We are more republic. There's your education for the day. If you didn't know, now you know. We are more republic than we are democracy. Some of the others on the globe are more democracy than we are. So in this particular case, they were not able to form government. Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't put it together, and now they're going to have a re-election. And so we're going to have to wait to see what happens there, because there's a lot riding on what's going on in the Middle East, quite literally because of our involvement, our tie to Israel. I've always said I'm a strong Israel supporter, but the more I've found out about the faulty information that was given to us from Israel and leads to us in the Middle East and leads to our kids in the Middle East getting shot at, getting killed, massive drain of manpower, resources, and a whole lot of else. They can be our friends, and I'll still be a friend of Israel. But if they have people, again, not the Israeli people, because I love the Israeli people, the people, if their government did things to take advantage of our power, our strength, the help that we provide, the aid that we provide, the support, the backup that the United States provides in getting us into the Middle East for 18 years now, ladies and gentlemen, 18 years, then brother, you're doing me dirty. And I don't give a damn if you're my brother. If you play me dirty, I'm going to call it out dirty. So we are uniquely tied right now to this particular election. You should pay attention to this one. Because if not Netanyahu doesn't win and Gantz does, Israel's going to take a different form going forward in their foreign policy, and that includes with us. Not going to be bad for us. I don't think it'll ever be bad between our two nations. Not quite. But it'll definitely mean a different outlook and a different policy structure. Because I'm not totally okay with our Mideast foreign policy right now. I haven't been okay with it for quite some time, and that's under multiple presidents. And if you don't like that because you're a Trump supporter, or you don't like that because you're an Obama supporter, then by all means, dislike away. Fact is, we don't have anything credible and good out of our Middle East foreign policy going back to before the Berlin Wall fell. Because at least then it was clear and concise. I'm being a little nice here, but nobody's gotten it right since that time. Okay, Bibi Netanyahu. Keep an eye on that. It's important, ladies and gentlemen. It will affect our troop movements, our deployment. And by saying that alone, you should pay attention. Everybody out there loves a serviceman, right? Yeah, everybody out there loves a serviceman over there, or unless you're related to one. And then we move off to the new bright, shiny, bright object, okay? But this, quite literally, this election could affect, I think it will, take that back, not could, it will affect, I don't know to what degree, we'll see, but it will affect our foreign policy in the Middle East. It will affect our troop movements and deployments in the Middle East. It will affect our commitment to Israel, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and other countries that we are becoming more and more involved with, entangled with, and I will use that word today, that we are becoming more entangled with than ever before. It is cause for concern, because some of you out there don't want us in other places spending our money somewhere else. I'm kind of with you on that one, by the way. I don't think we should get involved unless it's, directly causes us a problem down the road. And maybe that's their rationale. They think it's going to be so much better for us if we get in bed deep with Israel, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and a couple other countries in that location against their natural rivals, some of the other forms of Islam. Okay? But we are in bed with some of the Islamists and Islamic countries. All right? So think about that. I want you to pay attention to that one in particular. Okay. A few more here, and then we'll be off because I'm going to keep it under an hour. Trying hard. Yeah, there won't be too much more. Okay. So, and this is a by the by, this goes directly back to our forum and our group, the SuperMex Nation group. SuperMex International is the business page through Facebook with which we partner with Mad Production Studios, KP1, my homeboy here, and we run everything through that vehicle page from Facebook and to YouTube. And then the SuperMex Nation, not international, but Nation, the page is structured for forum, discussion, dialogue, conversation, and a chance to bring forth issue and policy that we need to pay attention to. Okay, so we set that up quite a while ago now, months ago. I want to say 4 months ago, 3 months ago. And I've monitored. I've been, not too heavy-handed with, the rules and the rationale. I've said, and I said early on, that I do not want foul language, negative conduct in the form of ripping on others, making it about the person, not the issue. I don't like posts that are blatantly designed to anger, rile, incite, inflame, and I have removed some of those. I don't like, and I will not tolerate posts that are blatantly false or that have no basis in fact. I have removed some of those, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I'm going to bring up one in particular, one specific point. And maybe some of you didn't see it because it happened over the weekend. But I want to say about a week ago, we heard about, I think it was last week exactly, going back to over the weekend, the Nancy Pelosi situation where she was interviewed some place by some reporter, and they took the video of that interview and they doctored it. Doctored, meaning they took the video and they altered it, they sped it up, slowed it down. So in essence, instead of her talking to you like this, when you watch the video, like of me, it came out like this. And so lo and behold, within that very same day, it ran on Fox and some other places, and next thing you know, it's getting blasted all over the internet. And lo and behold, it ended up on SuperMex Nation. Now, I've been telling you and I've been warning you, all right? And this is for anybody. It's for posterity. It's for anybody watching. It's not just for my page. It's for any page. You want to know why we have the problems we have in social media and in not just government, but in society? It's because people do things like that. They think it's funny, but in essence, it's designed to take a shot or belittle, maim, harm, or hurt the other person. Now, whether you like Nancy Pelosi or not is irrelevant to me. Whether you like Donald Trump or not is irrelevant to me. What matters is it is not factual. It's not true. It's something done to put forth and move lies and misinformation. And I've said on air more than a few times, true journalism, true reporting has moved away from that. Because in the old days, you had 3 channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, those 3 networks, right? And then you added Fox in, I want to say, the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s. Then you had 4, and then you had bloof. You had an explosion of access, networks, outlets. And then with the advent of social media, the internet, you have a gazillion. And everybody that jumps up, including me, gets on a camera and pipes off, thinks they're an expert and knows something. And unfortunately, many of you out there in this cyber world, this nether reality of intake of information, you take what you hear as truth simply because you heard it on a channel or on a podcast, live cast, a Facebook or YouTube channel. You take it as gospel. I've always said on this thing here that we're doing, fact check me. Disbelieve me in advance. You're not going to harm my feelings because I'm the one telling you to do it. I don't bring you and I don't peddle misinformation. I'm very diligent about putting the information out in front of you that is factual and true because I actually hold some damn responsibility to doing it the right way. The problem is that 99% of this thing now doesn't. They do it quite literally to move you in their direction. They do it to get you to believe everything they say. I don't. And if I lose you because you don't want to hear what you want to hear, and you don't want me to tell you what you want to hear to make you feel better when you go home at night or you go to bed, then you shouldn't be here. Go somewhere else. There's plenty of others, and it may not be a good business model for me, but I don't give a damn. I've never been a good business model. What I've been is a good American. That's what I've been. That's my business model. I live a clean, happy life because I don't lie to people. I don't tell them untruths. I don't mislead them, and I don't give them misinformation. So that never going to happen again. So I'm letting you know, if you're on my forum, on my page, SuperMex Nation, don't peddle misinformation. One of you in my forum, you did that. And you're going to need to either apologize for it or answer for it. You know who you are. If you're watching, you and I are going to have a talk. Okay? But that's what was put on. That Pelosi's, and I remember it explicitly because it kind of, I'm going to say it. I don't like using the language, but it pissed me off. It bothered me. It angered me that people that should know me by now, that should understand my rationale, my logic form, my character and my conduct, should know better than to peddle that cheese and that garbage. Should know better. And I remember, it said 3 things: alcohol, Xanax, or dementia. Because they wanted to talk smack about their political opponent or somebody that they didn't like. Alcohol, Xanax, or dementia. When the reality was, and Facebook confirmed it, that somebody took her video, doctored it, altered it, changed it to make it look bad. And you peddled it. Not here. It was removed when I saw it. I knew something was wrong because I saw a clip of that Pelosi interview, just like I watch a lot of clips of a whole bunch of people. And I said immediately, something doesn't reconcile here. That doesn't sound right. So I watched the video. I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right. And lo and behold, before that night was done, it was stated that yes, Facebook confirmed that the video was taken, the video was doctored and altered. And I'm going to say it again. I don't give a damn if you like Nancy Pelosi or love her. It doesn't matter to me at all. What matters is that type of misinformation is the reason why we are in the state we are right now as a country. Because we don't give a damn anymore. We don't care about the other side. We believe in misinformation. We tell untruths, and facts do not matter anymore. Facts matter here. Facts matter here. I won't put it out if I can't confirm it. That's something you got to get square with. Some of you stay with me. You're loyal and you're diehard, because even when we disagree, even if I'm not with you on an item, an issue, or a person, you do know what you get here. It's the same. Hasn't changed since I started. It won't change when I'm dead. It's going to be the same. That's why you should keep coming back. Whether you like me or not is irrelevant. What you're getting is good quality information. Okay? That's what you get here. So, last call, and to tell you, because it's going to get uglier, like now, sooner than later. And I'm talking about the political aspect of what we do, meaning in our forum and the things we do. It's going to get uglier. And I'm going to try to keep you centered. And I'm going to try to keep you focused on True North. And I'm going to try to keep you focused on facts. Okay? I am moving a little more in one direction, not based on a party, but on a philosophy of what I think is right and wrong in terms of our politics. Yeah, and I think, you know, I'll put this out before we finish up tonight because we're almost done here. I am probably, like I said, I'm going to do the Second Amendment. And you're going to want to watch that. Okay? It's not sexy, it's not glossy, it's meat and potatoes. For those of you guys that still like meat and potatoes, you're going to want to watch. I like my meat and papas. A little bit of salsa, but I like my meat and potatoes. I think I am going to, and I've been wanting to for a while now. I think it's necessary. I don't see any reason why not. I am going to begin doing a multi-part series, probably not in this format with KP. It's, you know, maybe I'll just do it on the side, you know, in pieces, maybe 15 to 30 minutes tackling each item. But I'm going to begin piecing together and talking about Constitution and constitutionality. Because that's quite literally the filter we need to look through some of these things. Okay, last shot, because this is where it's going to get testy, and I'm going to have to go home and respond to a Facebook forum post. Remember what I said, keep it clean or I will cut you. Keep it clean and don't make it a personal attack. Okay, name calling, I think you know where I'm going with this. Name calling, that's just sorry. It's third grade. That's little kid stuff. We don't do that here. I don't do that, and so by extension, we don't do that within the context of our discussion and our dialogue in the form of SuperMex Nation. Either this format, medium, or the page itself. We don't do that. We don't do that. And finally, I will say this. We're getting close to a couple hundred like diehards, and now I'm going to begin to grow the group. But before we grow, we need to make sure that we're solid and stable. It isn't all of you in the group that I'm talking about right now. It's just a handful of you. It's quite literally just a handful of you. I'm going to have talks with you guys individually. You're going to need to clean up your act. All right? Some of you think you can get away with a little bit more because you're a friend of mine or that you know me, etc. Sorry. Ask my son. He's in the group now. Going to be a junior at Harvard, and he'll be the first one to tell you. I won't peddle misinformation or one-sided information because my dad would smack me. Now, I can't go smack everyone because we don't resort to violence here, right? Don't do that. Now, I haven't smacked the boy since I hit him on the butt, maybe when he was like 5 years old. Rhetorically, of course. Or, pejoratively, we're talking about it. But, let me give you this. It doesn't matter who you are to me. You can be related to me. You can be my best friend. You can be one of my clients, my employees, a customer, whatever. It doesn't matter. You all get the same treatment. I had one message from somebody in the SuperMex Nation group and asked me, and I wasn't happy about it, but it was a legit question. Asked me, why is it a couple people keep posting and it seems like they can post whatever they want? while I tell people that they got to keep it clean, they got to keep it friendly, they got to keep it civil, they got to keep it courteous. That'll never happen again. So those of you guys that have been doing that, clean it up, or I'll clean you out. Try me. All right? Everybody gets the same treatment. That's the America I live in. And that's the America the SuperMex Nation operates in. That is SuperMex Nation. It's all American. There's my thoughts for the day. Wrap in. Make sure you pay attention to some of these items because they're serious. And lastly, number love, respect, and condolences and prayers to the families of these people behind us. Remember, fact-based, issue-oriented, solution-driven. I'm tired of seeing people get whacked out for no reason. Let's start actively talking about how we can do something about it. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. SuperMex Nation is out.